please join me in welcoming James Vanderbilt.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be back at TIFF after 10 years in one of my favorite cities, Toronto. I was actually shooting another film here in April, and so it's just such a joy to be with you guys tonight and to present Nuremberg. 13 years ago, I read a story written by Jack L. High, who was about to write a book called The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, and it's the quickest I ever said yes to anything in my life. And I hope you will see why tonight. Both my grandfathers fought in World War II. And I grew up hearing the stories about that, and I had friends who lost family members in the Holocaust. And so for my generation, and for me, it was a living thing. It was something that I could touch. It felt like something that was tangible, and it really happened. I find myself now, when I talk to my children about it, one of them is here tonight, it's almost like talking to them about the American Revolution. The past grows farther and farther behind us. And so our efforts here tonight are to make that past come back alive, because there's so much that we can learn from it. Before we begin, I want to thank a few incredible people who, none of whom without this movie would exist. Michael and Tom from Sony Picture Classics, who took a chance on this film in an incredible way. Richard and Brooke Saperstein at Bluestone Entertainment, fantastic. Frank Smith, Sherilyn Harwish, Benjamin Tappan at Walden Media. Bradley J. Fisher. Jack L. High, the amazing author of the book, who is in the audience with us tonight. Tom Eagles, our incredible editor, and Ryan Price, our incredible post supervisor, who came out to this. And finally, our fantastic cast, many of whom are in attendance tonight, and you will hear from after the film. But until then, let me just say how humbled and honored I am after 13 years to be able to share this with you. I hope you enjoy. This is Nuremberg.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Keith Benny. I'm the Vice President of Public Programming here at TIFF. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage the director of Nuremberg, James Vanderbilt. And this incredible cast, Rami Malek. Michael Shannon. Leo Woodall. Richard E. Grant. John Slattery. And the incredible Russell Crowe. All right, let's take a seat. Congratulations to you all on the film. It's such a towering achievement. James, I want to start with you. The film is based on the book The Nazi and the Psychiatrist by Jack Al-Hai.
Yes.
When did you first encounter the book, and why did you want to revisit Nuremberg?
Well, first of all, I think Jack is here, so I just want to make sure yes! Right there. I first encountered the story through Jack 13 years ago. And he had written it as an article, and that was being used as a book proposal to write the full proposal. Like I said in the beginning, it was the quickest I'd said yes to anything in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a film, and that's such a story. Those characters are so compelling, and I want to explore them and live with them and help tell this story.
And this is obviously very difficult subject matter about one of the most horrific kind of periods of our human history. How did you approach balancing that historical accuracy, but also the cinematic nature of telling this story? Because it's harrowing and it's difficult, but it's also thrilling and compelling, and there's moments of levity in there as well. So how do you hold both of those things at the same time?
I mean, I think for me, films that I grew up with that I loved that dealt with sort of historical drama and thriller, like JFK and Apollo 13 and Glory, they were about very serious things that happened, but also were just great emotional stories. And I always sort of find that the stories are the things that stay with us. You know what I mean? You can hear facts and figures, and you can be told information, but it's the emotional journey you get taken on that makes you remember things and feel things. In a way, and so that's why I wanted to make sure that this felt like a real exploration of these characters and what they went through, and not just dour the entire time, so that when we do deal with the very serious stuff, it has the impact it should have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the serious stuff, can you talk about the inclusion of the archival footage? Because
yes.
I feel like it's a very visceral and striking moment in the film, and I think both for the audience seeing it, but also the characters in the courtroom, it creates such a moment. If you could speak to how you included that.
Yes, no, I mean, from the very first draft, I was adamant that we were going to use the real footage, that we were not going to recreate anything, we weren't going to shoot anything for it, that we would present it without music. That's the original narration from the footage that was shown in the courtroom, and one of the things we all sort of talked about was I asked them, I didn't know if they'd seen it yet, but in preparation for the film, to not watch the footage before, so that on the day they could experience it as freshly and as sort of as harrowingly as possible. And I remember we went in and we set up 4 cameras, and I said some words to the crew. We took a moment of silence, and then we rolled. And it was a really hard day, but it was really important, I think, for all of us to honor what had happened.
Do any of you want to speak to that moment and seeing that footage for the first time in that courtroom scene, and what that does for your own characters and understanding of the impact it might have?
Well, yeah, that was an interesting day for me because, I was playing Howie, who was, hiding this big secret from everyone in the room. It was incredibly shocking and painful for everyone to watch. So I shared that with everyone in the room. But yeah, having that sort of extra context was kind of frightening in a way. And I just want to say, I about a week ago was in Telluride, Colorado, and a young woman came up to me and said, "Are you Leo?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You just played my grandfather in Nuremberg." She and her brother Jonathan here tonight, Katie Triest and Jonathan Triest. And they are sat over there. So yeah, I didn't know I was going to meet them when we filmed it, but it was, it was something.
Russell, it takes an actor of incredible skill and talent to find humanity in the darkest of characters. When you played Maximus in Gladiator, you said that you didn't want to play a hero, you wanted to play a man. And I feel like with this role, with Göring, you are not a villain, but a man. How did you approach playing this difficult role?
I thought it's a short Q&A, yeah?
We have time.
Okay, so we're going to have to get together tomorrow morning. It'll probably take about 2 hours to answer that question. So bring some sandwiches and something to drink. And if you have toilet problems, please go before we start. The thing is about this particular job, and I've said this a few times, so you might read it, because I've said it to some journalists. I liken it to walking into a Wild West saloon, and every single person in the room is a gunfighter, and everybody's ready and willing to do exactly what they need to on their day to make sure that they get through it. And that was an exciting energy to be around. You know, I knew Michael. I didn't know the other boys, but I'd worked together with Michael on another film where we had an extremely challenging thing to do together, this fight sequence that we spent months learning. And so I knew that there was an inherent trust with him. You know, Jamie, I didn't know. I took it purely off the quality of the script. The writing was magnificent, and people kept saying, you know, but the money dropped out 3 times. How did you stay with it? It's like, you know, I've been around long enough to know that when something's written really well, that's a good fucking start. So you hang on to that shit as much as you can. And now you should talk to somebody else.
Rami, you capture Dr. Kelly's confidence early on in the film, and then later his vulnerabilities. There are moments between Kelly and Göring where you seem to switch roles between doctor and patient. How did you interpret his journey and how this experience changed him as a man?
Oh, God. I think I can get the back of the room. Oh, no. No, I'm just kidding. How do I interpret it? I don't. He's a very complex individual. He's at one point I hired a psychiatrist, not for me, not that there's a problem with that, but I wanted to kind of dissect the way Doug would the characters himself. Thought about Göring as a classic narcissist. And Doug as a classic obsessive, and as I slowly delved into the research and just delving into who this human being was and how complicated he was, you could just see that the two were morphing in a certain sense. There was a appreciation for Göring. As you've said, Göring was someone who people describe as the first person you'd invite to a dinner party. And so I thought, imagine being in the same room with that person and them, the disparate aspect of them being a Nazi, right? So at one point there's a challenge of appreciating what you have to do, and then there's also just a man who is charming and smart and witty, and Russell delivers that in spades, day in and day out.
Acting? I was acting.
But, so there is an affinity for the man, especially as you see in the end credits. You realize that, there was someone he wanted to emulate, and there's it says his father figure, was a man who I think he wanted to rise above Doug, in a sense. And perhaps I kept, a touchstone was, what are the things that he sees in Göring that he would want to emulate? And then that would possibly build to a character that would break, because he would have the integrity to know he didn't want to be that man. And so there's this constant tension in every moment between us. And what Jamie and Darius Wolski and Eve Stewart, our cinematographer and production designer, did so well is in every one of those cells we're in, usually on filmmaking, we'll remove a wall and bring in the camera, right, to make more room. Well, Jamie wanted to keep it as claustrophobic as possible. So you and I were stuck in there, the three of us sometimes, with, camera operators, camera assistants, people holding a couple boom mics, and in that moment, you can just look an actor of that caliber or this caliber in the eye and tell the truth. And it gets vicious, it gets violent, it's at times cathartic. It's, those moments after a fight when you just end up laughing with someone. It ran the gamut of emotions. And I found that, I discovered that, but somehow I thought that was planned, which is a tribute to you and how you crafted it, sir.
Thank you.
Michael, yes, please. Justice Jackson is a man of immense kind of moral fortitude, and you channel that kind of internal drive so well. What aspects of his character do you find yourself most drawn to in shaping your performance?
Oh, well, I guess there wasn't much about him I didn't like. I mean, I don't know the man very well. I never got to meet him, but based on what little I could find out, he seemed pretty okay across the board.
Enough said.
Go on. What do you love about it? You've been talking about it, and it really, I find it quite inspiring what you say about it.
Well, I just say I admire his single-mindedness. It would have been very easy for him when people were trying to tell him how silly his idea was of having this trial, to say, yeah, I guess you're right. I shouldn't do that. I'll just keep showing up at the Supreme Court and dealing with these parking tickets or whatever. But he wouldn't do that. And I find there's a lot of situations nowadays that seem kind of insurmountable, and things happening that people know aren't right, but they feel like there's nothing they can do about them. And this is a guy who said, this isn't right, and there is something I can do about it. And it might make my life a little less uncomfortable. I might not get all the things I want to get. I might not get to be Supreme Court justice. That scene's so fun. It's just a little scene. President, yeah, it's not you. Yeah, I didn't want the job anyway. Yeah, Richard shot, Oh well, but but it's hard. It's really hard now. I think a lot of people are feeling like, God, I know something needs to change, but I don't know how to do it. So, And the thing about Robert Jackson is he didn't even go to law school. Neither do you need to go to law school.
Richard, the courtroom is an exact replica, and what was it like as an actor to kind of step into a space that is almost like stepping back into history? How does that do to help shape your performance?
The YouTube archive of the entire trial was an extraordinary gift, because you could go and see what your character sounded like, moved like, and did all of that. But what my experience of that was extraordinary in that the big denouement between Michael and I and Russell was scheduled over 3 days. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to do my bit, my 3 or 4 pages worth on the Tuesday, so I could sort of sphincter-winkly ease into the day. Excuse my bottom reverb. And then on the Monday, that fucker over there came up and he said, Russell and Shannon, Michael, want to just do it all the way through. I know you're scheduled for tomorrow, but can we just do it all in today? And I literally went like a cat's arsehole, like that. Shat myself, figuratively. And then we did it in a 25-minute take, which is the longest that I have ever experienced. And nobody dried, nobody fucked up a line. And what was absolutely astonishing is that the 600 extras, supporting artists in the galleries, like where you are up there, who were all Hungarian. A lot of them didn't speak English because we'd hear them, you know, in between the takes. And because they'd lived through, or their parents had lived through the Nazi occupation, followed by the communist occupation, this liberation was very, very pertinent and fresh in their life experience. And at the end, even if they didn't understand everything that was said, the moment I finished speaking, there was sort of 2 beats of silence, and the entire lot of them stood up, which was phenomenal, like you did tonight. So, thank you.
John, you're fantastic as the no bullshit warden of the place. And it's a really difficult job for him because he has to keep everyone alive and keep order. What are the stakes like for your character, and how did you kind of channel that?
To Russell's point, you know, when I read the script and I knew that they were involved, and and then arriving and then seeing the preparation and Eve's sets and Darius's preparation and Jamie's amazing script, and then all of these people put together, there was a sense of obligation. I mean, there was a bar but it's about a group of people for whom there was a great obligation. I mean, this was a high wire act of an incredible degree that was designed for the world to see. It would have been easier to go home, to shoot them and go home. Everybody wanted to. So there was a sort of a commensurate, like you knew you were in good company. You knew that everybody was bringing their best effort to a story in which everybody was doing the same. So, I mean, I was just glad to be there. But every day, every day something happened where you thought, well, I got to see that. That was incredible.
Leo, you have a very pivotal scene in which Howie reveals to Dr. Kelly that he's Jewish. It gives a human face to the grief, to the suffering, and reminds Dr. Kelly of what's at stake in the trial. I think it's like one of the linchpins of the film. How did you prepare for that kind of emotional energy for the scene?
In all honesty, you know, it was already on the page. I just had to sort of show up, know my lines, kind of stay as sort of grounded and breathe and be with Rami and just tell this story. I didn't really, you know, I think if I would have been in danger of trying to put emotion onto it where it didn't need to be. And I think we were in agreement, weren't we, that the story just needs to be told. He's just telling him. That's it. And it, you know, if it's emotive, then it's emotive. If it's just straight, then it's straight. It doesn't really matter. It's just the story being told.
You did it so beautifully, though. I don't want to sell that shit. It's not. I mean,
it was one of those moments where I was just watching and responding, but I would ask you, Leo, how do you feel? He'd just go, I don't know. I don't know. And I thought those are the best moments because you're just in it, and it was beautiful to watch take after take, man. So yeah, another round of applause for Lee.
I think that's also a testament, James, to all of your hard work on the film. I have to say, this is one of the greatest ensembles we have at the festival this year. Please join me in celebrating Nuremberg.
Before we leave, we're up here as a group of men, and we talk about Eve Stewart. Jan Sewell, who did my makeup on Bohemian Rhapsody, deserves all the love. But let's go from Lydia to Ren to Lotte to Fleur.
Yep.
I mean, they're as important to the film as anyone you see here. So many people behind the scenes. Richard Saperstein, our producers here, our great team of producers, and Tom and Michael from Sony Pictures Classics. If you guys look at Sony Pictures Classics and look at the films that have come out of that company, I mean, these are custodians of film. They are the custodians of great storytelling, and I think we're all privileged as a community to be a part of it, and collectively to be connected and tethered to the history of filmmaking through them, through this film, and through everyone at TIFF, and thank you, Cameron, as well. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the film to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Have a great night.